you have 4 different phases in your cycle. It makes sense that you feel differently almost 4 times. Like, I've heard this before. I feel like I have 4 different personalities. And I'm like, it makes sense because you do have 4 different emphasis in moods and perspectives and desires, in skills. Like the brain changes up to 25% throughout the menstrual cycle. That is bonkers.
Wow.
Insane. There's so much changing all the time. And so just knowing that is almost like understanding your cycle just gives you permission to finally breathe. It's like, oh my gosh, this is all normal. It's like it takes the pressure out of you. Like it's beautiful to see a woman go from like stuck in her like, oh, like I'm literally frozen in this state and I don't function to like I can flow differently every week. Like
Unleash the untapped potential within you as we dive fearlessly into the realms of healing, personal growth, self-love, and uncharted territories of the human experience. Join us as we navigate relationships, conquer career and business milestones, and explore the depths of spirituality. This isn't just a podcast, it's a manifesto for the resilient, the ambitious, the soul-searching women and men of today. Grab your coffee and let's dive in with Beyond the Surface. Welcome back to another episode, and I am so excited. I feel like I have somehow created a mini series for women, and we're talking about cycles and being cyclical beings and what way to wrap this up, I guess, in some way with someone who is all about helping women understand their menstrual cycles and our hormones. And I am so grateful to have you here. Maria, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you so much. And this has been a little bit of a long time coming. We've had this on the calendar for a couple months and life happened, but I feel like it all happens in divine timing and the way it was meant to happen. So I'm so grateful that you're here with me
oh,
today.
I'm so excited to talk about this. Always.
I'm sure you are. This is your life's work. This is your purpose.
This is my jam.
Yeah, exactly. And I love like just a bit of background. I remember it was through a past guest, Parmise, and I think you just simply engaged with our live that her and I did together. And I went creeping, and I was like, "Holy shit! This woman is phenomenal!" And I started like eating up all your stuff, from your emails to what you post on Instagram, and I was just like, I would love to have you on. And I just sent you this message, and we've just been connecting on Instagram. And so, again, I'm so grateful to have you here. But I'd love for you to introduce yourself and a little bit more about what you do and how you support women.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, there's so much to unpack because I feel like I wear so many hats just in the helping women part. But just generally, I am a women's hormone health specialist. So my goal and what I try to do is try to help women all over the world just heal from these hormonal imbalances, such as, PMS, painful periods, PCOS, even things like PMDD and other things. Mm-hmm. So the goal is so that can understand that that's what they're missing to regain all that energy that they are desiring, to getting back the confidence that they're desiring, to get back the love for their bodies, right? Like as every single one of my clients, they have no love for their bodies. And I think that even you and me can relate to this. Probably been a struggle our entire lives, right? Yeah. And also, when you bring all of that, guess what happens? You start extending your youthfulness. You are preserving aspects of your body, such as fertility. So you're able to preserve that fertility into maybe your late or early 40s. And you don't have so much pressure in getting pregnant right now because, the world has changed so much that we choose to have kids later, and that's okay. So ultimately what this is like help women just live in their full potential, bringing more clarity, more focus, more productivity, more health, just more ease. Because I'm so sick of seeing us struggle.
Totally. And as women, I think we're all tired of struggling. And I was having this conversation yesterday where we're just not taught how to understand our cycles. We're not taught this at any point in our school system. At least here, being in Canada, I was never taught any of this, how to really understand. And so now being 30, I'm at a phase where this is even very new, where it's the last couple of years that I've been looking at really understanding what does each phase of my cycle mean and tracking my cycle. I never used to track it. Never. And even that has been my own little like journey and struggle because I've been so frustrated of feeling this inconsistency of around my cycle. And maybe this will kind of take us into a conversation, but I honestly would get so frustrated and there was so much fear around my cycle for such a long time because in my brain was engraved every single month you should have your period. And I just this was so liberating to understand and know that I was not on a 28-day cycle and that mine is more of like in that like 30 days or whatever it is. And I was like, "Oh, I understand a little." I was like, this is just so liberating to know that little tiny piece of information. Um Anyways, the point of me bringing that up is just the fears and the things that come up for us women around our cycle. And I'm curious, like, what do you normally see? What's the biggest thing that you see coming up for us women and our limiting beliefs around that?
Everything.
Right.
But I think that it all stems from that one point that you said, which is, for example, the young girls that I know that are tracking their periods, it's because they saw it online. It was
Mm,
never communicated to them through, a medical doctor or the family doctor, even in school. Like, they don't know. Even me, like, it took me 28 years of my life to understand that, like, oh, we should be tracking. Like, there's reasons to track. There's need to track because it gives us so much information and we want to optimize ourselves all the time. So I need this information. And so because we don't have any of that, we then are given just like okay, this is your circumstance. You're bleeding every month. And with that bleeding, you are struggling like crazy. You have
yeah.
like almost 2 weeks before, you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to feel like your memory is not there. You're going to feel like your performance is not there. You're going to feel crazy. Everyone's going to irritate you. And then you have your period and you're going to struggle even more with pain. So in
Yeah.
our minds, this is all like a curse. Like, I hate being a woman. I don't get it. Like, I'd much rather be a man. And so my whole goal with, like, when I talk to any women is just letting them first and foremost know that even if they don't believe it now, their cycle is such a powerhouse of potential, of skills, of everything that they've ever desired. It's all there. But it's like you've been blind. It's like I've given you the wrong book of life the whole time. And
Yeah.
you've been reading a book that really just gives momentum to male hormones. And now I finally switched the book, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, everything starts to make sense. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, this is happening quite late in life for the majority of us because I need to make this distinguish. No, this, yeah, I need to make this, I need to separate to almost two times of life. We used to be super connected to our bodies in the past. Like,
Hmm.
for us, we used to behave that way much more easier and with much more intuition. But
Yeah.
because of industrialization, it was really just everything became a rush. Everything became always on the go, go, go. And because of that, we transformed into very much like this male type of behavior. And we have forgotten about that we carry a different physiology. We carry different hormones. We carry different things, such as the cycle. And so I think now we just need to relearn what we knew. Like, everyone has this innate information inside them. And even when I'm teaching women all this idea of cycle syncing, it's almost like they can go back in time and, like, okay, this makes sense actually. Like, I've noticed this before. Like,
Mm.
they've always known this, but they've ignored it and thought it was wrong to feel differently. They thought it was wrong. They thought it was wrong to just, like, not be able to wake up the same every day and just behave the same and have the same sexual desire and have the same happiness, and everything's always the same.
Yeah.
So I see women
Mm.
struggle with that a lot. Like, I think that's the biggest point.
A
And then
thousand
what
percent.
happens actually is, because we ignore that so much and we normalize everything, then all of these chronic issues come to us. So I'm kind of just, I'm helping women heal the root cause, which is them not knowing about their bodies. And then once they know, the healing starts. It's not necessarily like, let's learn how to heal a disease. Like, let's learn how to focus on how do you show up for your body, and then that healing starts as well.
Mm. It's so interesting. Last week I was talking to last week on the podcast we had Hannah, and um, one of the things that came up was all of this. Like all of this was coming up, and I said to her, although I've never tracked until I would say the last year, I innately had this knowing of when it was I was meant to kind of just go inward.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And there is that period and time in your cycle where you are retreating and you are going inward. And then you have the time right after your period, you are like firecracker energy, do all the things. Um, but we innately know, and our bodies innately know. And I love what you said. It's what the way that I interpret it is you're helping women remember the innate knowledge that we already have. And this was coming up before when I was sitting before we kind of jumped on and started recording. I was really just thinking about almost like how, not, I'm going to say sad, but sad in a way that we have as women, I think we've lost or forgotten, not lost, we've forgotten our power and how powerful we are. And one of the things is this cycle, like, because like we can bring humans into the world. And I never used to understand or even grasp that. And I would love to just, even if this is like a little sprinkle, but bringing people, bringing women back to being able to really embrace the cycle and our innate gifts, and being able to embrace the seasons that we have to go through. Because there's not just spring, summer, winter, fall. We also have, and it's not just in a year, calendar year, we go through that
Every month.
in a month.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to embrace that and not shame ourselves for it. And I feel like it starts with us being able to embrace it, because how can men embrace it and understand it if we aren't starting there?
Yeah.
And it's sad to see. I know it sometimes can be a joke, but again, I saw this video recently on TikTok, and this guy was saying how, I really only have you for a week or something like that, because during your period you're PMSing, 2 weeks before your period you're PMSing. And I'm like, I get it, it's a joke, but it's not funny. It's not funny, because that's creating shame. That's creating shame around our cycles and what we're navigating. And yes, I'm sure you're the expert here, but yes, I'm sure that there's a period of, there's the hormone imbalances too, right, that are causing things. But I think no matter what, we naturally are going to go through a wave of emotions and feelings and
Yes.
moods, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And that's my favorite ever session that I have with my clients, is showing them how the brain changes for every one of those 4 seasons of every month, which is, the 4 phases of our cycle. Let me say it out here. You have 4 different phases in your cycle. It makes sense that you feel differently almost 4 times. Like, I've heard this before. I feel like I have 4 different personalities. And I'm like, it makes sense, because you do have 4 different emphasis in moods and perspectives and desires and skills. Like, the brain changes up to 25% throughout the menstrual cycle. That is bonkers.
Wow.
Insane. There's so much changing all the time. And so just knowing that is almost like understanding your cycle just gives you permission to finally breathe. It's like, oh my gosh, this is all normal. It's like it takes the pressure out of you. Like, it's beautiful to see a woman go from like stuck in her, like, oh, like I'm literally frozen in this state and I don't function, to like, I can flow differently every week. Like, oh my gosh. And because of that, like all of these different aspects, just financial, romantic, being an entrepreneur and having their business flourish, like all of that kind of like becomes better because you start cycle syncing and start understanding your cycle.
Yeah.
And we should give ourselves permission to feel all those feelings. And I always say this, we are 10 times luckier than men to have a cycle, because for 4 different weeks, it's not really 4 different weeks, but let's say it this way, if you divide it in four, we have very dominant skills come
Mm.
forward. So if like we can tap into that and get it done with the biggest skill ever, like it's so emphasized, there's no way that you can get better than that. And then the week after that maybe is something different. And men are kind of like always the same. They kind of have to push for that if they desire it, whilst we are given that naturally by our up and down of a hormonal cycle. I feel like that's such a huge benefit. But the thing is, we have to know it and we have to incorporate it. Otherwise, you always feel like you're like 10 steps back than what you feel you should, than what you would want to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I've never heard you say the whole skill aspect. I've never heard that come through.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know people have talked about in, you know, just how being able to focus on different tasks in different phases of your menstrual cycle. But I've never heard that aspect of skills.
Yeah, you match the task to the skill that you have just
Wow.
booming. For example, in that follicular phase, the way the brain is communicating is going to be all about creativity and complex problem solving tasks. If you
Mm.
know you're good at that, focus on that. Focus, focus, focus. You'll see that you'll be like, if you have like a problem solving, if you have, for example, let's say that you're a manager and you have to create team meetings, then if you know that you're in a follicular phase and you have stuff to do, don't leave it for the next week. Do it now, because you're going to be like on fire with your team. You're going to show up and they're going to be impressed by your demeanor, like the way you're vocalizing things, right? Like do it then. It's creativity and problem solving there. Then it's communication and vocalizing and expressing, like get that promotion in that week of your ovulatory phase, right?
Yeah.
Match the skill to the task. You know, something that I was talking to someone else like 2 days ago, and she was also kind of, she started teaching her clients syncing their business to their cycle.
Mhm.
And something that I told her was, when we don't match the skills to the task, we get almost like the feeling, like we get the ick about our schedule. We get that like, oh, I really don't want to do this now. This just, everything in my body is rejecting this task, and we
100%.
want to do something else. But in
100%.
this world of like to-do lists, and then I have to do this now, like, and then you take 3 hours extra to do a task like it would have taken you maybe 30 minutes in the right phase. And I've done this myself. Like I know for a fact that if you sync the skills to the task, you are going to save like 50% of your time, almost, maybe more,
Mm.
maybe more.
I completely agree. This was me yesterday. I knew I was in that mood of I'm going to burn everything to the ground. Okay. Like if I were to dive into anything creative in my business, I would have like destroyed everything, just destroyed. Because
Yeah.
and this is what's so interesting. If you just notice, pay attention, I think that aspect, if cycle syncing is new and understanding your cycle is new, the simple thing that you can do is look at yourself from this like bird's eye view and just notice. Don't judge yourself, don't shame yourself, but just pay attention at
Mm-hmm.
what's happening and when is it happening. That's something that's just worked for me as I've been trying to like I've just been going down this path of understanding and kind of looking at my app like, okay, interesting. And just noticing what's happening in my day, in my week. Because it's just like I can really, I really notice now the week before my period. And I notice honestly when I'm like day 2 of my cycle and I'm in like completely polar opposites.
Yeah.
I am like here, fire, everything makes sense. And then a couple weeks before, like a week before my period, I'm like, nothing makes sense. What am I doing? What am I doing with everything? Right. And it's like knowing I really stop myself to go into those tasks that I need to be creative and be kind of in that space. I just avoid it. I'm like, don't do it. It's not going to be worth it.
Yeah, leave it to the phase where your brain is going to be there for you.
Yeah.
Also, let me take this one, like, let's take it one step further. I think also we have this easier than men. My personal opinion is our cycle literally gives us this magical ability to start something new. And then when we get to our period, like late luteal phase, to reevaluate if we did that well, if we like it, if we're in the right path, what do we need to course correct? Like it purposely puts you there so you're always course correcting your life. Like that is in honestly, I always have chills talking about this because I just like it's perfection. It's perfection. But we see it as a polar opposite. We see it as damaging. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're not good enough in our peers. Like, oh, don't talk to her because she's not gonna be this task is gonna be done that well because she's on her period. Like, who created all of these myths?
Yeah, 100%. In that, going on that part, what is it, how do you look and evaluate? What is something like, what's the practice that you bring in during that phase that allows you to reevaluate?
Okay, so I'm a very I'm a visual learner and I like to also hear someone explain things to me. And I think that from the work that I've done with my clients, before you start like oh how do I do this, how do I do this, like actually take the time to learn the four different phases of your cycle and how your brain changes and what would it look like to optimize that week for you. So for example, I would give a class about that and then you go home and you're like, oh, I know how I'm going to do this so that I know exactly how to evaluate my life in that specific phase. I know what questions to ask in that specific phase. It takes time to learn. This is just think about it. Like, I don't want people to listen to this podcast and be like, oh, I'm going to be able to do this in a month. Like, it really does take time to embrace this and get used to it. And there's so many
Mhm.
facets to cycle syncing. But honestly, like the best thing you're going to do is get someone to just explain it to you in such a way that you're gonna be like, oh, wow, like this is so well explained and this is so well. There's examples that like perfectly fit my life. That I think that's the best way for you to have like this light bulb moment, and then you can take it home with you. But
Mm,
what I do, if I can say it,
of course.
is in the late luteal phase, like really close to my menstruation, maybe 3 days before I have my period, and in my period, I notice all of the discomfort I feel. And that discomfort is not because things are going wrong or I'm moody or my emotions are low. It's my body telling me there's something that you don't like that you need to change. And so I sit here with my journal and I start like, okay, I'm feeling this way. Let's go deeper into the emotion. The emotion is just a reflection of a thought, maybe of a belief. What's behind this emotion? And I start, and eventually I somewhat come to an answer and I slightly shift that for the next month. It doesn't need to be a huge shift. Sometimes it's just like I could be feeling a certain way because of something related to my partner. It doesn't have to be like always related to work and always related to, there's so many aspects that you need to evaluate. And that's how I do it. But then again, I have specific questions that I ask myself. Like I've been doing this for so long. It has
Yeah.
taken me a long time to get to the place where I feel comfortable with this process. Like when I first started cycle syncing, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to learn all of this now. And then again, I'm idiot. You're self sabotaging. Like this, ultimately, future you is going to thank you hardcore that you learn all about your cycle and your body. So be kind with yourself. Just choose one thing that you want to learn first and go for that. And ask for
Mhm.
help if you just don't want to do it all by yourself.
A
Honestly,
100%. And I feel like we definitely haven't touched, but I'm witnessing how, coming from where you're coming from, because you've been doing this for so long, I'm witnessing how to you you've created that ease in your life
yeah.
because of you've been doing this for so long. But I also see your perspective, and of course this makes sense because it's the work that you do, but the lens in which you see this for us women is from a place of empowerment, from
Yep.
this beautiful place. You have this whole other lens that you have. But I'm sure we all have a backstory. And I'm sure this wasn't always the case. So
No.
I'm curious if you want to share a little bit of your own journey and your own story to getting here and now to this time in your life where now you're kind of on this other end of it.
Yeah, and thank you for asking me that question because, like, for so long, I used to hide the fact that I struggled for so long because honestly, like, when you're in this teaching position and you haven't really embraced vulnerability, which is something that I just couldn't do before, I was just pretending that everything was fine. But the reason why I got here is because of my entire life, right? So I've never had a good relationship with my body, with myself. I was very I was very degrading towards myself. Like I never liked what I saw in the mirror. Just I was like definitely in shambles until the age of 24. So that's a really long time. And that's my formative years, right? Like I grow up and I'm forming my beliefs and then all those teenage years, which are so hard. And I literally had no confidence. I had no self-esteem. I had nothing. I was really like low, low, low. And I feel like so many women just are in this position too. But what really, and unfortunately, I hate that this is how most people wake up. Like I hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to be the case for so many women because like it took me so long to start living life. Like I don't want to say that I wasted years of living, but I definitely like if I knew all of this before, imagine how much more I could have like enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
But we all have a purpose, right? Like the reason why I had to live that life was so I can be in this position, talking to you and the people who are going to listen to this and help them. But I was like really, really, really sick as a child, as a teenager. By the time I got to 24 years old, I was pre-diabetic. I had hyperthyroid. I had PCOS. I was on the pill for 10 years. I had literally chunks of my hair falling. I had cystic acne everywhere, like even in my chest and my boobs. Like I was so. How can someone that is so low ever feel good about themselves and what they do? Even if I was doing well in my research, I just
Mm-hmm.
hated everything. Like I never thought I was good enough. So the healing was brought me to this position right now where like, yes, I'm not yet there where I'm like, I love myself and I have the perfect relationship with my body. It's nonstop healing, nonstop like care for ourselves. I must say this right now because a lot of people think that, oh, if I just put effort for a year, like everything will be fine. Like, girl, you're in it for life.
Totally. There's layers
Yeah.
to our healing.
So my story is that it's just like a lot of suffering with my body, a lot of just struggle and understanding that like that didn't need to happen if I knew all that I know now, and
Yeah.
therefore I want to teach it to like everyone and their cousin and their mom and their their sister and everyone.
100%. And I'm really grateful that that you've shared like all that you've shared. And also too, I want people to know, kind of going back to what you said, that this is not something that we have to do on our own, and because it's so freaking challenging. I have just kind of found the resources, and again, it's just like that little taste of information that I've started to understand, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg. That is just like that first like layer of the onion that just like easily falls off, you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
that's where I've chosen to start. But what I love is the support that you bring into for people and their lives, and knowing that people don't have to do this by themselves. And so like I just wanted to pinpoint here, if for anyone who's listening and resonates with you and your energy, to ask for help, not be afraid to ask for help, because this doesn't have to happen on your own,
And I
right?
think
Like,
that, yeah. Sorry,
go
I
ahead.
was to complement what you're saying, and especially in women have such a hard time because we're brainwashed so early into this, like, no, you got to do everything yourself so that you can show that you're good enough. You need to learn all of this by yourself and then show us that you're good
Mhm.
enough. And it's never a collaborative, supportive anything. And we
Yeah.
used to behave like that in the past. And if we go to tribes, that's how they behave, how they're successful. But we in this world, we've decided that we're going to be like pretending that no one's here, then we can. We're all craving for all of this support, and like all my clients always tell me that it was the best decision that they made, even though it was like they were scared of doing it. But it's like that little faith that deep down that you need that support, and you're not about to take 10 more years of your life just trying to learn something. That's why
Mm.
there's professionals for things. That's why there's specialists. That's why you go to the people who have learned it so that you can gain that wisdom in 2 to 3 hours or 5 hours or a week. You don't have to
Exactly.
spend 10 years of your life trying to get to the same place. It's nonsense.
Exactly. And that's that I'm so glad you said that, because that's the thing that we need to like dismantle, is this whole doing it by ourselves. And I am not the queen of this, okay? I struggle still to this day to
Same.
let people in and ask for help and say, you know what? I'm not going to do this by myself. Hey, you know what? Instead of me sitting in this, I'm going to reach out to my community and ask for help. And I actually recently did this, and not really anything related to what we're talking about, but I've been on this beautiful journey with cacao. And this time last year, I was really diving into this journey and this and really becoming intentional and on this journey of becoming a ceremonialist and being able to host my own circles. But very shortly after, or right after, I just didn't feel this readiness to go and start hosting circles. That is such a sacred thing, and I also understand that this is coming from like our indigenous, and I respect that so much. And I just didn't host circles, or I would put it out and no one would register or show up. And I was like, I wonder why. This is happening for a reason, because I'm not quite there yet. I'm not quite ready yet. And so I was sitting in this, wanting to build this relationship, wanting to be in this space of cacao and circle. And I just wasn't. I completely lost this like ritual, this practice, this relationship that I've built. And finally, I was like, you know what? Enough is enough. I am going to reach out to my dear mentor, and I just said, "Hey, I don't know where this is going to land, but this is how I'm feeling, and I resonate so much with your story and your journey of how you were supporting a ceremonialist before you even started hosting your own circles. Can I support you in any way, shape or form at your circles? And I will just come and I will be your support." And she was like, "Absolutely, Ashley."
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was such a relief to send this voice note and this message and to be received and to also be seen and to just create this beautiful relationship. And again, we don't have to do things by ourselves. And yes, sometimes I think the biggest thing is like there's this whole piece around the investment, right?
Yep.
Prepare for the investment. Find ways, if this is something that you really want to integrate and bring into your life, prepare for the investment. No one's saying, okay, go and do it right away. Reaching out, finding the information. Okay, what does this even look like to work together? We end up going through the stories and I can't do this. I can't afford this. We don't even know what the price is. We don't even know. And that's
Yeah.
happened to me so many times where I just don't reach out because I'm like, no, there's no way I could afford this. I find out the information. I'm like, oh, that's it? Like, I could do this. I can afford this, right? And you also just see the value of it as well. I don't know why that tangent came through, but yeah.
No, but it's important because I think that is one of the limitations that prevents people from getting the result that they want is they stop
Yeah.
themselves even before they know if they can make it happen. Like just like you said, you could be looking at someone and say like, "There's no way I can work with this woman." What if you asked her, "Is there any way that we can have an extended payment plan?" You don't know where things could lead. And then if you know the investment, how can I prepare for this? Like you said, and also so many women that I talk to, they prefer to keep comforts they're
Mm.
paying for that are bringing them nowhere, but staying them in the comfort zone, which is where it feels nice because your nervous system doesn't want anything new. But it's also making those decisions like, what am I prioritizing in my life that makes no sense? And I could put this money into me, into changing that, right? And then maybe I can get it back, whatever. But it's more important my body, my happiness, my sense of love for myself than anything else. then again, we have to, sometimes it takes time for us to get there, right? Like not everyone's going to have that
100%.
click immediately. Just like
Hmm.
it's not for either you and me. Like I feel like now we have more practice in saying yes to support because we said that first time. And I think when
Yeah.
you take your first step of saying support,
Oh,
it's so much easier. Like I was gonna ask you actually, like when you sent that voice note to that mentor, like how did it feel in your body? It's like suddenly you're like,
yeah.
okay, I can't just exist without like I'm vibrating like
Yeah. 100%. You feel so like rigid and
yeah.
you feel so tense. You feel so tense because on on the other side of just the ask is what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing I think we often forget is that even if she were to say and respond with a no, I felt so much relief of just putting out the ask
Yeah.
and just to allow that to physically I say that because I voiced it, and I it's always happened for me when I communicate something that I need or something that is on my heart. Whenever I let that come out through my words, I immediately am like, oh, I'm so glad I let that out, no matter what the outcome is. And that's the thing, right? When we can ask for support, um it just, again, we can get to where we're going faster.
And also, let's turn this medically. When you don't ask for support and you want to do everything yourself, that puts you in tension, in high cortisol, in fight or flight, and that messes up with having a regular cycle that supports you. That shows up with the skills that we were talking about every week. So, actually, not asking for support is an issue. Now, wanting to be supported because you have something to prove is an issue. So, the more you resolve that, actually, the better your health will be. Because everything is
Mm,
emotionally related to every organ is affected by your emotions, physically, literally,
yeah.
with a hormone, with a chemical, with a neurochemical. It doesn't matter. Like you get the response in your body, even if you don't think it's because of that belief that you can't ask for support.
I'm so glad that you said that too. I think we truly forget that. We forget there's so much stress, right? And that encompasses so much, but stress is such a thing that causes so much. And I see it in people in my life. I see what stress has done to people. And it's so sad. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because there is another way of living.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what this is. There's other ways of living that doesn't have to be so hard that we make it to be hard, we make it to be complex, we make it to be frustrating. And on the other side of it is the ease, it's the satisfaction that we want to feel, it's the success that we want to feel,
Yeah,
it's the joy on the other side of this. Mm.
truly. There's no need
Yeah.
to even like I did a post not long ago that it said I pretty much said like the survival of the fittest will be those who actually have the knowledge to sustain health because we are always in fight or flight in that state. And that state equals chronic disease and death. And
Yeah.
those who know how to get out of that state will be those who are always that you'll be jealous of, like, why are they able to function this way? And I can't. Like, we need to learn to get out of this state. We are programmed to be in this state, and it's so important that we do that. And guess what? Actually knowing how to behave for each phase of your cycle helps you know how to go into self-care deeply.
Yeah.
Sorry, my English. And yeah, and it's everything is related back to your hormones and to your cycle and to taking care of your body. It's
Mhm.
it's no coincidences.
No, nothing is. To wrap this up in this beautiful conversation that I'm so grateful for, I would love for you to share a little bit about your offerings, anything, any resources, offerings. I want you to leave it here.
So I have a little free hormonal guide that people can have if they want, and it kind of just for those who like to read things first, they can do that. But I have this gift, and I think it's an amazing opportunity for everyone, which is a 45-minute call with me that is for free, where we get to have a really knowledgeable, deep conversation about what's going on in your body and what does it look like to heal. So what this is like, oh, sorry, could you still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
What this is like like you've been blind and I'm opening the door so you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I give that to you in that call. And then obviously it's up to you to decide if you want to go by yourself, if you want to continue working with someone like me or someone similar to me. But you need to know what is going on with you before you make that decision. And in that call, I'm able to provide that to my future clients or to people who will never be my client, but they're so grateful that they learned that in that call.
Mm-hmm. That's so beautiful. I will leave all the beautiful links to you to follow you, your emails, your posts on Instagram. I absolutely adore them. And I think I've just been eating up all the information that it's time for me clearly to jump on a call with you as well and dive in. I have been, I'm telling you, it's been in the back of my mind. Maria, 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 back of my mind. So,
Let's do it. And you know
yes.
what? This has inspired me to just go live on Instagram and talk more about this. I feel like
Mm,
people are craving to hear these conversations more.
100%. And there's always been something about video and using our voice that will never come across the exact same in a written post. So I
No.
always encourage people. I know it's scary to some people feel uncomfortable and they're not used to doing video. I'm like, just do it. The first couple that you're gonna do, it's gonna feel awkward. You're gonna be like, what the hell am I doing? But, I always now having been on social media and always doing video, I feel so comfortable naturally doing it, and we're here to exercise and use our voices. We've been given it for a reason. Use it. Use it.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Chills. It
oh,
was a pleasure,
I know.
Ashley. Seriously. Loved it.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for you. And to everyone who has tuned in, I know something has probably landed. Feel free to share, reach out to Maria, whatever has landed, reach out to me. I'd love to hear what landed for you, what came up for you, and we'll see you next week on the episode.
Thank you.